Hey YouTube.
Yo, what's going on?
Terrence, what I was saying was, I just, like I said, I set up a Shopify store, had all those affiliate links, and just did, black Tiana dolls, Princess Tiana dolls, and everything, every keyword I could stuff for anything black Tiana, black Princess and the Frog. I just tried to capitalize on all those keywords. So it worked. It actually it did what it was designed to do. But that was back when you could actually mess with Google like that.
Wait a minute. I'm just don't mind me. I'm looking at some stuff I didn't see on here. In okay. All right, we ready? What we doing?
You want to throw your AirPod in so we don't get that echo.
I've been
So,
having some issues.
so maybe the echo cancellation works on the mic controls. Can you turn on
I
the
it, yeah, it's
echo?
on. It always has been
And
on.
then the second thing you may just have to do if the AirPods or the headphones is killing you, you may have to turn your volume down because
Oh, wait,
on your computer. 'Cause that's where you're hearing us from, right?
hold on.
I mean, not down to mute, but down low so the mic doesn't pick up on the.
I'm sorry. I did. I had clicked my output. Change my. I was trying to change my output back, so I didn't hear the last part of what you said about what to do.
Oh, so the second, so the problem is, I mean, as you know already, the sound coming from your computer is getting picked up by the mic.
Right.
So if you, the only other way around it without wearing headphones is turning the speakers from your computer down real low to where you can barely hear, but it's not enough to get picked up by the mic.
Mm,
Or put on some headphones, which is probably
I
the
know.
best course of action.
I'm not hearing it right now. So if you
Yeah,
have
I turned it
the,
way down. I turned my speaker way down.
yeah,
Because yeah,
if you
my
got the
computer has been acting up with connecting to my headphones, my AirPods, and throwing me off and kicking me. It's been janky
Oh,
lately.
so what I did was, and we'll get into the show. I set on my well, you have a PC, so
Right.
never mind.
And I think that's part of the problem.
Right. What I was going to say, what happens to me is I have a Mac, I have an iPad, and I have an iPhone, all three of which,
Or
depending on
trying to
what I'm
connect.
doing, so I've got a shortcut to where as soon as I go on air is my shortcut, or
Hmm.
not my shortcut, the focus on my phone.
Hmm.
You can do the focus. I've got it set up to where it turns off Bluetooth on my iPad and my iPhone to where the only
Oh,
Bluetooth is for my Mac. So if I'm doing something on either device and audio comes through, it disconnects. And then as soon as I turn the on air focus mode back off, then it turns back on the Bluetooth. So
that might not be a bad idea
long
because that's
story.
the other part of the problem is my phone always wants to pick up the AirPods, so it goes back and forth and connects and disconnects, and Bluetooth on the PC is, suspect at best and all the rest of that. So just like, boo.
All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and jump into a tech show. So I'll count us in, get some dead air, and then we can just go right to it. Three, two, one. And from Columbus, Ohio, I'm your host, Rob Dunwood.
And coming out of Philly, it's your girl Tech Life Stuff.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrence Gaines, aka Brother Tech, aka Brokey McPoverty. I got a couple of devices on the way, and I pretty much burned up my
pre-order is in.
burned up my
So-
credit card last week. So I'm at the pinch my pennies for the rest of the month here.
Did you click the send all of it to me button?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So, this is the first Apple event that I can say that I have watched from the very beginning all the way through the end. And I wasn't expecting it to be like 90 minutes. It was an hour and a half. But that, I've never liked the bands on the Apple Watch. I know we'll get to it eventually, but those bands, I think it's on the Ultra. I kind of like them. So if I were,
So
an
when you
Apple
say
user, I
you
could see
don't
why
like the
you-
bands, which ones are you talking about? Because if you, I don't know when the last time you've been to the Apple Store website, but there's a pretty extensive library when it comes to Apple Watch bands. Now, granted, they ain't cheap. You can probably go to Amazon and get 50 million thousand El Cheapo joints for half the cost. But if you are a purist and you only use Apple branded bands, they have a nice little category. So much so that they've got a Apple Watch library to where you can actually go through the Apple Watch case, the color, the material, different bands, and there's like hundreds of options with the band. So it would behoove you to go back to the Apple Store.com. I mean, really doesn't matter to you because I don't think you have an Apple Watch, but
Right.
they got a nice little variety to where you could actually get the exact look you're looking for in most cases.
Yeah. And we definitely, we'll just go ahead and, tell folks what's coming up in the show. That is the big story, is the Apple event. So we'll be getting into that a little bit later. But before we dive into tech, I just want to remind our listeners how you can help support the show. So, folks, we are on Patreon. If you were to head over to patreon.com/thetechjohn, we have multiple tiers over there. Any one of those tiers helps us, helps us support the show, or helps support the show. And we appreciate anything that you do over there. And what you get as a benefit is the ability to listen to our live show and our after party is one of the benefits. There's also an ad-free stream over there. So we're doing a bunch of different things over on Patreon. And right now, as we're recording the show, we have some of our patrons, Saray and Charles, and some others that will be popping in probably throughout the show that are actually listening to us and are giving us feedback as we are recording live. So if you want to hang out with us while we record the Tech John, once again, head over to patreon.com/thetechjohn and become a patron and help support the show. So, guys, speaking of Patreon, one of the stories that I wanted to dive into, because there was some big news. I don't know how much either of you paid attention to this last week, but there was some news that came out that Patreon laid off their entire security team. So to make a long story short, there is a woman, Emily Metcalf, that said she and the rest of the Patreon security team are no longer with the company and she's now looking for work. She actually posted that on her LinkedIn account. And then there was a DPO and privacy InfoSec lawyer whose name is Whitney Merrill, who tweeted that LinkedIn post out, and it went viral to the point to where Patreon had to actually come out and respond to this. So essentially what it's looking like is that they're not saying that they laid everybody off, but they laid at least 5 people off. And it looks like they're now outsourcing all of their security, which in itself isn't a bad thing. A good thing is just a thing. But the way that they probably should have prepared for it was not the way that they did. It should have never come out this way. I wanted to get your guys' take on just how they actually announced this thing, and then we can kind of get into the nature of what it's like to have an actual service provider actually doing all of your security for you.
Well, so I don't know if they could have announced it any better way than not announcing it.
Well, yeah, they didn't announce it.
Right.
She put them
Yeah,
on
they didn't announce
blast.
it.
Right.
And they probably were hoping it was going to stay on the low.
Yeah, hope
And
is not a
even-
strategy. Not with this.
But
kind of
but
stuff.
even if though, in the age of social media, in the stage of everybody has a platform, everybody has a following, they could have laid off 2 people. And if those people had an issue, they would have took to Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever and said, hey, this thing is happening over at Patreon. I don't know what's going on, but they fired a couple security people. Y'all might want to look into it. And the way we are hungry for news, the way we are hungry for also drama, it would have picked up and ran with it, and Patreon still would have had to say something. So it's almost like, well, if we make this announcement that we're firing or laying off or whatever we're doing to a nice chunk of our security team, the stories would have ran with it. Them not saying anything at all, the people involved would have ran with it, because that seems like to be the popular thing to do, good or bad. I'm not saying it's wrong on her for blowing up the company spot like that, but this is what happens when companies lay off or fire a nice chunk of people for whatever reason: recession, inflation, budget cutting, trim the fat from the bottom line. People have platforms and they're going to run their mouths, good or bad. And this is just how it is now.
Par for the course. And if Patreon was, if they had somebody in their communications team that was on their job, they could have got ahead of this from the beginning and put out a blog post talking about what their new updated security policies and procedures were going to be, and slip in there real quick.
Right.
This means we have had to trim our internal team a bit, but it is in service of bringing you all of this new stuff we about to do with this outsourced company
Right.
that we know we getting with. So
And
they
your
should have
security,
been
your
in front
private,
of that.
and
Like
your
from the beginning.
security, right? And just rest assured, your security and privacy is
Yes,
not going to be
will not
jeopardized, and
change. Exactly. Your
blah blah
data is
blah.
safe.
Right,
All that
right,
good stuff. They should have got in
yeah.
front of this
Yep.
like well before she had a
That
chance
is
to make a
that is
tweet.
that is precisely where I sit with this. Patreon needed to do the preemptive strike. You know that you're doing this. You know that you are probably going to. Now I don't know. Patreon didn't call me up and tell me what they're doing, but it looks like they're going to a managed service provider to actually provide their internal security. Some folks are going to have thoughts on that, whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, or indifferent to it. That's a different conversation. But knowing that you are a fairly well-known organization, that people, like people who are in the social media have heard of Patreon, they use it. It's a very recognizable name. I think they needed to get in front of this. It's like, how could you allow the marketing, because now there are questions. There are people like us who use Patreon. It's like, hey, what's going on over there? You could have avoided all of that.
That little bit
Yeah.
of doubt that she
Yeah.
was able to cast with this one tweet is going to really, really do some damage to, their image and their ability to keep their user data safe. And it just, y'all got a bigger headache than you needed to have by
Yeah,
not.
you were going to have a headache, period. But you're better off saying, all right, we
But
still
you ain't
got
need
y'all.
you ain't need to give yourself a migraine.
Right,
They
exactly.
did.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm looking at this, and this, I was actually on Daily Tech News show last week, right after this came out, and and we talked about it. And like I said, one of the big things is that that we talked about on DTNS last week was that managed service providers are a thing. Many people who work in IT work for a company other than the company they're doing the work for. That's just the way business is done. And like I said, people have thoughts on, well, everybody should be internal, everybody should be external. That's neither here nor there. But it is a way of how business is being done. So if I were Patreon, if I were working there, if they would ask Rob what he thought on this, I would have said something like, well, number one, you need to come up, once you decide to make these layoffs, you already need to have your marketing out, so that as soon as you have the people in the room or on the Zoom call or however they're doing that, as soon as that's happening, you're pushing stuff out to PR Wire, telling Earth how you're going to run, this new environment.
Right.
You're
But-
telling them who your service provider is. You're telling them how everything is going to be okay. So you're assuring people like us that everything is going to be okay, as compared to just letting it come out sideways like it did.
But to not to be fair, but I could see how Patreon, I don't know how many employees they have. I don't know how many, what their bottom line is, but they're like, it was just 5 people. In the grand scheme of all the employees that Patreon has, 5 people, I don't know if it in general, I don't know, any other company, they fire, lay off, get rid of 5 people. Maybe they was like, really? We got to do all
I
this
think the
for
issue
five
though was
people?
that it was such a significant part of the security team. So their security team may have only been 7 people. You know what I mean? And so the way they would have had to think about the fact that if we have a 7 or 8 person security team and we letting 5 of them go, this
That's
is going
80,
to look like
90%.
we don't have any security
Right.
And
left
she showed,
because 2 people and that's how she made it sound.
and she framed it like that because, again,
Exactly.
she probably felt the kind of way, petty
Exactly.
me
She's
would have did
losing
the
her
same
job. Yeah,
thing,
You
too.
know what? I'm looking at, the LinkedIn post, and it's like, hey, I got laid off along with the rest of the security team. I'm looking for a job. Hit me up. I really don't see any sentiment in that, because
She
she
was
have
throwing
not said
shade.
those words.
Nah, she was
It-
come
the
on.
person, but the person that retweeted it had context around it to make it seem
Right.
like Patreon was now in jeopardy,
Right.
and so
Come on.
So
when you get
that's
that,
where the shade came from, and
yeah,
that's where
but
Patreon,
again,
they had to be out in front of this so that
that's why
wouldn't have happened.
exactly, because you never know, you know what I mean? Because the girl that the employee maybe just felt like to your point, Terrence, like I need another job. Like who out there hiring? But
And
now
shoot,
somebody
she
else
might be
would have
trying to be first.
with a bigger
if
platform, right? She want to be the first one to be like, yo.
you
But the
holler at me
person
right
with the
quick.
bigger platform who retweeted her and wanted, probably wanted some attention and some engagement, put that retweet out, and now everybody's, scrambling like the sky is falling when it's really not.
Now I'm looking at other tweets and stuff like that, because there's like I said, this thing went very viral very, very quickly. Well, how come we haven't heard from the other 4 folks? And one of the things that happens oftentimes when you have a managed service provider come in and take over a facet of your internal operations, they often keep, some of the staff, because you don't want all of that knowledge, all of that internal knowledge of how things used to work just walking out the door. So a lot of times, some of those folks actually
Well, now I'm
remain.
looking at her LinkedIn post now, and she does make it seem like the sky is falling. She says, "So for better or for worse, I and the rest of the Patreon security team are no longer with the company." She made it seem like their whole
She
team
was
was gone,
she was
and
throwing
so
shade.
yeah, that was shady. That was
Yeah.
shady. And it may be the case that they only had a 5-person security team. All the more reason Patreon should have been in front of this if they knew they were getting rid of their entire security team. Whether it was 5 people or 500 people, this was not an insignificant thing if in fact it was the entire team.
Yeah, she's not concerned about burning the bridge here.
Yeah, because that's what she did. That's
Yeah,
exactly what, and she
she's
knew
not
exactly what
concerned
she
about
was
that.
doing. She knew
Right.
exactly
So,
what she was doing.
but like I said, I thought it was interesting because I started hearing it. It's like, people are texting me, and folks that I don't even talk to regularly say, hey, I know you're on Patreon. You might want to go take a look at this. It made major headlines for 5 folks, which is really interesting. And it just kind of shows you just how powerful social media is. The fact that you could have one person say one thing and it goes viral, and now you have executives at the company scrambling to get messaging and stuff like that out. I thought that was pretty good, or pretty cool. So, guys, one story before we get to the Apple stuff that I wanted to put out here. I thought this was kind of interesting. We were going to, if we would have did a show last week, we would have talked about this because I think it came out last Monday morning. But TikTok has partnered with a company, or I should say an organization called Cyversity. It's a nonprofit organization that provides women and underrepresented minorities with scholarship opportunities, workforce development, and mentor programs. So essentially what they're doing is they're working with the National Cybersecurity Alliance, who actually has a program in HBCUs, and they're giving scholarship money out and training out and doing programs at HBCUs specifically around the area of cybersecurity. There is a stat from Cyberversity that came out late last year that there are 3.5 million open jobs in this space. Now, I don't imagine that those 3.5 million have been filled in the last year. Probably quite the opposite. But we talk about the social media companies all the time when they're as bad, and as we will continue to do. So the fact that they are putting some money into this, I just want to mention it. I'm not, going to dance a jig or anything like that because it's still TikTok, but they are putting some money there to get folks into positions because there's so much opportunity in cybersecurity and just IT in general. If you just get the right training for it. So I wanted to throw that out and just
I
get you
appreciate
guys.
what TikTok is trying to do as far as just getting the word out, but the initiative itself with the National Cybersecurity Alliance, the actual initiative that they're promoting is the wait a minute, let me make sure I read this correctly. Because TikTok is doing something, but then the National Security Alliance is also doing something with the historically Black colleges and universities career program.
Yeah, what it looked like to me is that TikTok is kind of funding the initiatives that Cyversity is running through the
Through the National
through the
Cybersecurity
National
Alliance.
Cybersecurity
Okay.
Alliance.
Okay.
So it's like here's the money, here's the organization we're giving the money to. Organization, you figure out how to actually get this into the into the hands of the people that you need to get it into the hands of. So those programs literally started in the last couple of weeks. It's the fall quarter just started. These scholarships are available at HBCUs as of I want to say as of the 5th. So that's last Monday is when these things went into effect.
All right, good for them.
Yeah.
Good
Anything's
for them.
better than nothing, I suppose.
Yeah. We have to wait until we see the fruits of the labor.
Yeah. That's always a thing. But like I said, I know
kind of like because I looked at the actual HBCU program that the National Cybersecurity Alliance has themselves, and it's like 4 HBCUs, and I'm just like, aren't there like 114 of them or something like that? I was just, like, I don't know. I mean, every little bit helps. I'm gonna keep a positive outlook on this one, and just say every little bit helps.
All right, so let's get to our main story, and we only had a couple because we want to spend some time on this. But there was an Apple announcement, an Apple event. As I said earlier, I watched the whole 90 minutes, and there's a bunch of stuff that came out. So Terrence, why don't you start us right at the top? And,
well, let me ask you first. Let me ask you first. What was about this event that made you want to tune in as opposed to previous events?
People keep asking me questions about what phone they should get. And I think I would be doing a disservice to them if I said Android without actually asking any questions or being aware of what other things exist. I wouldn't be a good, I have a hard time calling myself a journalist, so I'm not going to say that, but I wouldn't be a good host of a tech show if I only, if I was only a stand for just, my joint. So this was the first time I really said, I want to sit down, I want to look at and understand just about everything that is coming out and give you my honest opinions on them, so that when people ask me, I can say, oh, you probably should look at an iPhone, or because of this, or because you have an iPhone, you should get these these AirPods, because everything's just going to work, and want to be able to just have those conversations more effective, to the point to where your boy ordered one.
Oh,
I'm saying
okay.
that quietly though. Can't tell the internet. So
all right.
What did you say? Because I totally didn't hear you.
That was the point. I got a 14 Pro Max.
Oh, okay.
Will it be my daily driver? Probably not, but I'll at least be able to use the joint and tell folks how it works.
All right. Well, I guess we can get into it then. For those who don't know, Apple had an event last Wednesday where they announced some new hardware. They announced 4 new phones. These are the not predecessor, but what comes after what's the other word? The
successor.
Yes, to the iPhone 13 lineup. They have a iPhone 14, which is I'm going to call iPhone 14 regular, and then they have an iPhone 14 Plus, which is the similar features as the iPhone 14 regular, but in a larger display, 6.7 inch. So you have a regular iPhone and then you have an iPhone 14 Plus. New cameras. They've got better focus mode. They've got better sensors, a little bit better battery life. Apple claims quote unquote all day battery life in air quotes, but it ain't really all day. I would guess you would call it a work day. 9 to 5 type thing, but the battery is better as compared to the iPhone 13. What makes these devices better would be the crash detection, which is a new feature to where your phone has additional sensors, gyroscope, accelerometer that can detect when you've been in a car crash, and it'll do one of two things. It'll have a countdown and says, okay, basically, if you don't respond, that it was either a false alarm, you really wasn't in a crash, or two, I need some help. If you don't automatically give a response, once it gets the countdown down to, I think it's 10 seconds or something like that, when the countdown is to 0, it automatically notify your contacts, your emergency contacts, and your medical ID, and it'll alert authorities to your presence. So that's a benefit. In addition to that, they have a emergency SOS feature via satellite. And basically what this does, if you one of those people that like to go out hiking and you may run the risk without telling nobody,
right,
without having no other, I got this, I know what I'm doing, one of them people, and then get lost, and you don't have those emergency things in place. New iPhones have a emergency SOS via satellite, and basically what it does is you can fire off this feature, and the feature will actually help you locate a satellite in your vicinity by literally having like the for those
range,
who got an iPhone,
it was like a little range detector where you can kind of move around and find where the satellite is positioned.
And then once you find that position, the messaging system will actually fire off your location. It'll ask you a couple of questions like, are you okay? Are you injured? A couple of questions. And based on how you answer those questions and based on your location, again, it'll send off, it'll reach out to dispatch all via text message. There's no phone calls. It's just text messages to where they will send this information off to dispatch. They will also, again, they will send out information to your emergency contacts. So basically a lot of these features are to better off help people. Apple can be that assistant, for lack of a better term, when it comes to, health and life type services. A couple of colors. I think one of the,
one.
Yeah.
It was always my favorite color as a child. So
right.
I'm honoring my inner child with the purple phone.
Right. Another feature for the 14s. All these features that I just mentioned are on the entire line of iPhones. Like I mentioned, there are 4 of them. Right now, we're talking about the iPhone and the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Plus. Another feature that's across the whole line is there's no SIM card, no physical SIM card. Mm-hmm. There's no SIM tray. Apple has worked with all the carriers to make sure everything is compatible to where you're using an eSIM. And as a matter of fact, you get multiple eSIMs. So say, for instance, you want a personal phone number with a certain, whatever the plan is, and then you've got a business or you got work or whatever case, you can have those 2 lines on one phone, and then you can actually designate, if you've got a contact, is it a personal contact or a business contact, so on and so forth. Or for example, if you travel, so you've got a SIM, a line and a phone number for, regular calls. Mm-hmm. If you'd like to travel a lot, you can go to another country. You can sign up for their permanent or temporary service, and you can do all that without an actual physical SIM that you have to actually physically go to a store and actually purchase and actually insert in your device.
I actually thought that I would have a problem with not having a physical SIM until I really thought about it. I was like, when is the last time I physically popped a SIM card out and popped another one in? I used to travel overseas regularly for work. So it was not a thing. I would, pop my SIM card out, get one over there, pop it in, just because data was so expensive on American plans when you were in the UK or in, Europe or what have you. But when I went back and thought about the last time I did that, going back like 6, 7, 8 years ago. So it's like, well, if I'm not doing it, what am I really missing from that? So, I know some people are like poo-pooing not having the SIM card, tray any longer, but it's like, do you really need them anymore?
And in addition to that, according to Apple, I don't work for Apple, so I don't know what kind of conversations that they had, but they assured us that they've worked with all the carriers, all the major carriers anyway, to make sure that it's just as simple as, you know, reaching out to customer support or whatever carrier rep, you know, ask a couple questions, you know, you can actually set that plan up lickety split. So it may be a little bit easier versus having to get in your car, go to the wireless carrier, you know, take some time out of your day to actually get a physical SIM card or have one, or have to wait until one is mailed to you, right? So the couple other features with the 14 and 14 Plus, like I mentioned, cameras, and I'll just read this line from Apple. iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Plus introduce a new standard for photo and video capture with a new 12 megapixel main camera featuring larger sensors, larger pixels, a new front true depth camera, the ultra wide camera to capture more of a scene, and photonic engine for a giant leap in the low light performance. So I'm not a big spec person, so take that as the cameras are a little bit better. All right. And then the other two phones are the iPhone 14 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. The difference between the regular 14s and the Pro Max is these have even better cameras, a 48 megapixel iPhone camera, in addition to the crash detection, the emergency SOS, and the features that I mentioned before. They have that purple color that Stephanie mentioned that, you know, a lot of people like, but, you know, we'll see what the jury is on that. But I think the main feature that everybody talked about, or was the most interesting for the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, the notch, right? So on the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Plus, the notch is still there. On the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max, they have something called a dynamic island. And basically what it is the iPhone 14 Pro and the Pro Max have a pill shaped design where your camera sits and all of the sensors, like the front facing camera, the Face ID, and the proximity sensors. Those are all in that little pill. I don't know I look stupid on camera, but for people listening, it's like a little pill cutout where all those sensors would be. But the cool thing about this dynamic island is if you get a notification like a phone call or a text message, or if you are listening to music or whatever the case, listen to the news, watching the weather, if you swipe up on that particular app, it'll minimize the functionality of that app into this dynamic island to where you can actually see like the current album that's playing. You can actually see, like, if you use Uber or Lyft, and you do a Uber and a Lyft, and then you want to swipe up and do something else while you're waiting on your Uber and your Lyft, it'll minimize those notifications, that distance, the time it's going to take the Uber or the Lyft to get to you. It'll minimize that all into that actual tray. And if you press and hold on that information in the tray, it'll maximize that notification to where you can get more information. And the way they've done it is to, like, you can't even tell that the pill cutout is there. So that was like very
cool. I thought it was really cool. I saw your comment though about people not liking the touch bar as well. And I don't have a Mac. I've never used a Mac like that. So what was your beef there? Because I think Dynamic Island is very cool. I'm happy to see the notch go away, and as soon as we can get all this stuff under the screen all together and just have screen, the better. I think this is getting us a little bit closer to that.
Right.
But what was your disconnect, your beef between people who were applauding Dynamic Island but didn't like the touch bar?
Okay, so for whatever reason, I love the touch bar. And for those who are not familiar, don't have a Mac, when I want to say 2018, 2019, when those new MacBooks, the MacBook Pro specifically came out, they had what they called a touch bar at the very top that took the place of the function keys. But it was interactive and it was touch sensitive, to where if you wanted to play, pause music, you can actually touch this little touch bar. It wasn't a physical button. It was actually a touch bar, for lack of a better term. And you could play and pause music. Like, for instance, what I like to use it for on a MacBook was when I did video editing, I could take my finger and kind of scrub through and kind of like swipe my finger across this touch bar and I could scrub through the exact point to where I wanted to make a video edit. People hated it for whatever reason. It's unfunctional. We don't like it. I want my physical buttons back. And whatever the case may be, Apple said, all right, fine. Got rid of it for the new touch, for put their function keys back. Well, the dynamic island to me on these new 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max is very reminiscent of this touch bar to
maybe
where
they were just like, we're bringing it back. We gonna get it in there to y'all some kind of way. Like I said, I've never, I didn't use that. I was familiar with that feature when it got added to MacBooks and the backlash that came with it. But so I don't have a feel for how similar they might be. But
it's not
I think
exactly.
the island is really cool. I just think it's a cool feature, and I'm all for anything that gets that notch as small as possible.
Right. Now, eventually, maybe Apple will get rid of the notch or the dynamic island altogether when Apple figures out the technology for themselves that makes it easier for them to put those sensors and those cameras behind the actual screen, but still are functional to where they can still take the picture if you're using a selfie cam, quote unquote. It can do the sensors, especially for the Face ID, right? Right now, I mean, I suppose Apple and maybe some of the other manufacturers, Android, they all have that cutout because right now the technology isn't solid enough to where they can actually successfully put the cameras and the sensors behind the screen to where you just have a black face, right? But when people were running rumors about what the new 14s were going to look like, everybody assumed, well, everybody meaning the tech journalists, assumed that the Apple was going to adopt that pill cutout and that just be a permanent fixture. But what they did was Apple's like, all right, well, we're going to keep the notch because the notch kind of what separates an iPhone visibly from any other smartphone on the market, because all the other carriers like Android, other hardware manufacturers use like a little cutout just for the camera or use a pill for the other sensors. So Apple was like, all right, well, we're finally going to do the pinhole thing like everybody else, but we're going to Appleize it, for lack of a better term, and give you this dynamic island to where it's like, well, Apple's doing the same thing, but it's Apple, so they got to do this dynamic island.
And I appreciate that. It's like, I appreciate the fact that they wait until it works for them. I mean, I think that's most people who are diehard Android users, and Rob, you can speak to this, always talk about the fact that we've had that for years. But I challenge the idea that when Apple does something, they tend to do it a little bit better. I'm just saying, or they do it in a way that makes it their
unique
own
and special
and to Apple and Apple users. And I personally don't mind waiting because I want that experience as opposed to however some other operating system might implement that functionality. So I ain't mad at Apple. Take your time, do it. Wait until you get it the way you want it.
I am all but certain that Android OEMs are already working on. Okay, we can't call it dynamic island. What can we call it? We can call it awesome pill. Maybe we can. They will be doing something that they're gonna bite right from Apple. So, and I can say that I am not one of those ones. Not anymore. I used to be this way with BlackBerry, but not anymore with everything else. To where, we did this first, and now you're just copying it. I think that's good. If you invent windshield wipers and, company A and company B says, well, we don't want to copy, so we're not going to do that. So you just can't drive when it's raining. Well, that becomes a problem. Right. So I don't have a problem. You can't, bite something that somebody copyrighted. I'm not saying that, but it's like, as far as functionality, these are all rectangular pieces of glass and metal that do wondrous things. So the fact that you're going to see Apple with the dynamic island, and I'm gonna say this, I haven't actually physically seen a Pro yet, but the anti-alias game, at least from the renders, looks awesome because I can't tell where the pill is and where the actual black screen is. It's that matched up that closely. That's pretty impressive. And that's probably an Apple thing, because I know that if you have some other janky, I want to call it, if you have some other Android manufacturer, maybe a lower end manufacturer, you're going to see, something that's kind of black. And then when the pixels around it, they're kind of black as well, but they don't necessarily match up. So you can still see the notch there. I wasn't able to see the notch when the dynamic island would actually open up. I'm saying notch, I should say the peel when it opens up. I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, you're going to have some other folks who are going to bite, what Apple's doing, and then Apple's going to bite some stuff that Android's doing, and that's what they're going to do, probably through perpetuity. That's just how the things are going to go going forward.
Well, and competition is always good for the consumer, right? So, these companies biting off of each other just means better technology, so on and so forth. So real quick, I just wanted to do the prices, right? So iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Plus, the regular iPhone 14 regular is starts at $799, which is the same price as the iPhone 13 when they announced it. And so you can order it now. They'll be available if you want to go in stores or for shipping, available on September 16th. The iPhone 14 Plus, if you want the iPhone regular but with the bigger screen, that's available October 7th. So you will have to wait for the iPhone 14 Plus. For the iPhone 14 Pro, let me say the iPhone 14 Plus is $899, so it's $100 more expensive than the iPhone 14. iPhone 14 Plus is $899, and it's available. No, I'm sorry. Let me say that again. The iPhone 14 Pro, the little difference in the storage. So the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Plus only have 128, 256, and 512 gigabytes for storage. The iPhone 14 Pro and the Pro Plus add a terabyte. So you can get a terabyte of storage on your iPhone 14 Pro and Pro.
And we should also say that they now come with 6 gigs of RAM standard as well, which I think was an upgrade for this phone.
And very rarely does Apple announce how much RAM, but maybe they want people to know because the spec game is up, right? And then the iPhone 14 Pro starts at $999, and then the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is the bigger one, starts at $1099. So just want to give you those prices right there. So, and then the other things that Apple announced was they had some Apple Watches.
Well, we have to talk about and I just got to jump in there as the woman on the panel. I got to jump in here and talk about the Series 8 and just the implications of the body temperature.
I was going to get there. Right.
They were
I
touting.
definitely want to get your opinion
really
on that.
Hyped that up and made that a really big part of what was new in the Series 8. But the way this country is set up and the way Roe v. Wade ain't set up no more, I don't know that that's the flex Apple thinks it is, even though they have issued multiple statements.
Unless they can back it up.
Yeah, ensuring us that the privacy will remain as tight and security will. But all I could see and all I could think about when I heard about this, because again, they were, the Apple Watch Series 8 can now measure body temperature. And they were the two examples they gave for why that could be important was sleep tracking and fertility tracking. And really, like I said, just made a whole big deal about that whole fertility tracking thing. And I'm like, do we want to let the government know that there are even more ways that we're tracking our menstrual cycles and things like that? Because now when there is an anomaly or something gets recorded that is a little bit off, did she get an abortion when that spike went up in her body temperature or didn't go up in the time of the month it was supposed to go up? It should have changed and it didn't change. And so it's just like the idea that I would allow that watch to track any of my track and store any of my health information, period, but definitely that type of health information. I wouldn't even trust Apple to keep that information safe for me.
So here's a couple
the way our government is going, you just can't.
So here's a couple things that we all know that maybe regular people don't know. Apple didn't just decide 4 or 5 weeks ago to put that stuff in there.
Absolutely.
Not only hadn't Roe fell yet, we probably didn't even know about there's no probably. The leak, they had this stuff locked in feature set even before the leak of Roe falling, came about. So this is stuff they had been working on for a while. One of the things I noticed as I sat there and watched, And it probably happened 3 or 4 times, because by the time I realized it, I counted 2 more times that it happened. They mentioned that we do not have access to your unencrypted data. They kept saying that. They were hammering that point into, I believe that they said it at least 4 times. It was definitely 3, because after I heard it a couple times, I said, let me see how many more times they're going to say this,
Take a drink
because it is
every time you
so
say it.
important. They wanted to make sure that people know that your data is on your on your device. We don't have any access to it unencrypted. It's encrypted. They
And
even talked about the type of encryption.
I get it.
Oh no, I'm not.
However, to the point we talked about, Patreon should have got in front of that layoff thing. This was a little bit tone deaf for Apple. And this, like, yes, the technology may have been there before Roe fell, but now we're in a post Roe world. So like I don't even know. Like I don't know. I feel like you could have done something else that shouldn't have even been mentioned necessarily in the conversation about the body temperature tracking at all. Because now, like I said, now you
But
just
think about it though. This is just here. Apple doesn't sell most of its phones here. It sells most of its phones everywhere else where this isn't the issue that it is here. So I can see them in their marketing meetings. Do we not tell Earth this? Or do we just let them find out that it's in there and not talk about it? Or do we say it, and do we just say we don't have access to your data, and we just know that there's going to be people who, no matter what we say, they are never going to turn these features on?
And you have the option of not turning it on.
Right.
I see what Stephanie's saying. I think they could have made a bigger hubbub about it outside of just saying, hey, look, we ain't got your data, so don't come. The feds can't come to us looking for the data because we ain't got it. I think they could have came out with a better way to roll this out to reassure people, because people are not going to understand it. They could have watched the Apple event front to back, and then still there's going to be confusion. The feds, they may just press their luck.
We've seen, cases where criminals have had they found ways to backdoor people's phones and data to get at that encryption. So it's not like it can't get done. Just because Apple ain't gonna give it up doesn't mean it can't get acquired some kind of way. So like, you really got to make that stuff crystal clear for people and help people make an informed decision, because to Terrence's point, everybody ain't a tech expert. Everybody is not going to understand that, and they're just going to think, oh, Apple's going to keep my data safe, and then start putting all this stuff out there. And then once your phone gets subpoenaed or your watch gets subpoenaed, and they done grab that that technology from that little Department of Defense contractor that's making stuff that can crack anything, now you're going to jail for murder, for taking care of your own health. So it's just
just so folks understand where we're coming from, Stephanie.
Slippery slope.
Stephanie, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I'm just going to, just get, because this is what I would, if anybody was asking me, would you put your data in here and let it get synced up? My answer, and I think your answer would be, oh, hell no.
Hell no.
Is the answer. So if anybody wonders where we stand on this, nah, son, that's not happening.
Absolutely not.
That's not happening.
Yeah.
I applaud the effort, but the rules have changed. You got to protect yourself.
It would have been different a year ago, but not now. Not now.
Yep. So that was the main feature for the Apple Series 8, the Apple Watch Series 8, which I think it's better. Crash detection is now on the Apple Watch Series 8. I think it's better there on your wrist versus crash detection on your phone, because in the
people drop their phones every day.
Well, in the video, they showed a simulation of a car crash, and the car tipped over, the windshield bust out, all these other things happen, but your phone sitting on a little clip and connected to your HVAC. The phone didn't move at all. The phone just stayed still. When in reality, the phone is getting thrown away from the vehicle. It's getting lodged under something. It's not going to be on your person. I would trust the crash detection on my wrist, to where if I get in an accident or something happens, or I'm immobilized to where I can't, if the phone is 20 feet away and I can't call nobody, but something's wrong, I'm immobilized, you have a better shot to where you can reach to your wrist and say, hey, I need help, or send a message, or to let somebody know that you've been in an accident. So I like the crash detection built into the watch way more than the actual crash detection built on the phone.
I like the videos that they showed on, for when they brought the watch up, the videos they were showing. There was the brother that actually fell into the hopper of his dump truck and he was able to use it.
Right.
There was the girl who was in a plane crash. And what did it do? It notified her grandmother, and her grandmother called and said, hey, baby, you all right? And she like, no, call 911. We just literally crashed in this plane. Those kind of things, like, oh, wow, that was
so real life scenarios
real life
of things
stuff
that can actually happen. Another video they showed, a guy who's a doctor was at a restaurant and somebody was choking. They had an episode, or I think it was a stroke, and they wasn't choking. He had a stroke, and he actually took his watch off his arm, put it on the person who was having this medical condition, and the watch was like, yo, something's going on with old boy. Y'all need to look into it. And it actually, gave his vitals, for lack of a better term, and helped him, get the help that he needed. So, Apple really, this event really pushed safety, really pushed, hey, be careful, out in these streets. But if something happened, we got your back. Was
Can
pretty
we
much
talk
the whole
about
sentiment.
the Ultra though? Because I might have to get that. I'm just like, that Jawn looked pretty nice.
Right. So the Apple Watch,
that's a beautiful watch.
It's a beautiful watch. I'm just like, and it's bigger. I like a big watch, and there's no such thing as too big for me when it comes to watch face size. So the idea that it's bigger, and with the battery life, and with all the other little, I'm like, I just got my SE like last year, but I might need the. I don't know.
So speaking of the Apple Watch Series 8 and the SE, one of the, in my opinion, maybe a negative to the Apple Watch Series 8, looks no different than the Apple Watch Series 7. But if you are concerned about, hey, I want something that looks different, I want something that's bigger, I want something that's more sturdier, I want something that's more durable, yada, 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 Apple also announced the Apple Watch Ultra. It has a super durable screen. Number one, is bigger. The screen on the Series 8, and pretty much all of them, the biggest one you can get is 45 millimeters, but this one has a 49 millimeter screen. The case is bulkier. It has like this protective
titanium.
Titanium. It's got a titanium case. It has a flat sapphire front crystal that reveals the biggest and brightest Apple Watch display yet. I have no idea what nits are, but on the current Apple Watch,
of brightness.
Yeah, it's a measure of brightness, but I don't know what that measurement is. But as a comparison, the Apple Watch Series 8 and even the iPhones, the new iPhone 14, the Pro and the Max, are 1,000 nits of brightness. The Apple Watch Ultra is 2,000 nits of brightness. So I don't know what that means, but it's twice as bright as your best Apple Watch screen. So there's it's guaranteed if you're hiking on a mountain or climbing a mountain,
deep sea diving,
or you're in the desert and that sun is blazing, beating down on you, you can still see the screen on this Apple Watch Ultra. Another thing it differentiates it from the regular Series 8 is it has the crown, the digital crown, and it has the button that gives you like information, go to the settings. But on the left side of it, there's an additional button called an action button. And you can pretty much program this button to do anything. Start a run, start a dive. You can set it to do a multitude of things. So this whole watch is geared toward this ultra athletic adventurer. They've made it like 100 meters of waterproof depth. So if you're a scuba diver, you can dive up to 100 meters deep, and this thing is still going to work like you're on dry land. It's got all these extra complications. It has a night mode, unlike the Apple Watch Series 8. They just have always on, and it's either on or off. But this actually has an amber night mode to where if you're in the middle of nowhere and it's pitch black outside, you can still see this screen because it switches over to a night mode. Another thing that it has, it has an 86, I want to say 86 decibel siren on the watch. So if you need to let somebody know where you are and you are
Or
immobilized,
scare off a bear.
scare off a bear or some wolves or something, that's, I don't roll like that. I don't know too many people that look like me that roll like that. But if you watch the news, there are people all over the country all the time getting stranded in the middle of nowhere. So that 86 decibel siren may come in handy if you need to let somebody know where you are and deter somebody, or an animal from where you're at. So it has some different, like you mentioned, Rob, I think is what you were getting at. They have 3 new bands. There is a, what's the name of these bands? It has a trail loop, an alpine loop, and an ocean band. All have these unique features that made it good for whether you are risking the elements in the middle of nowhere, snow, sleet, sand, or if you're underwater. These bands supposedly, can fit all of those situations. Again, same thing with the Series 8 and the SE. They're available for pre-order today, and the Apple Watch Ultra is available Friday, September 23rd. Probably the surprising thing about the Apple Watch Ultra is it's not crazy expensive. It's
Yeah,
only,
it is.
well, no, compared to what all the features that you get,
Compared to that.
compared to what most people pay for this type of functionality, like these Garmin watches that do all these things. A lot of people assumed that this Apple Watch Ultra was going to be $1,200, $1,400, $1,600. It's only $899. Now compare that to,
Well, it starts at
if you,
$799. Actually,
I'm sorry,
looking at the
$799. I said
website right now.
$899. I'm sorry, that's my mistake. $799. Now you compare that to an Apple Watch Series 8. If you get the titanium case, and you
Right,
you
and
know
all
you get
the
the
upgrades.
right, and you get GPS and cellular, which there's no GPS or cellular option. You get GPS and cellular out the gate. There's no, well, I want the one with just GPS. You just get that. If you price up one of the Series 8s, it gets to about $799. So
Yeah.
the question is, if I'm gonna spend $799 for an Apple Watch Series 8, why not spend an extra $100 and get all this extra functionality, whether I use it or not? Now, again, most people
I
probably
don't know if
won't
I'm paying
use all this
$200.
functionality,
I just
but
like to watch, but I don't know if I'm paying
and that's what I was
$200.
going to say. This watch, for a lot of people, most people on Earth won't be able to use all this functionality to say, you know what, that justifies the price. But people like to flex, and this watch is definitely differentiate. You can definitely differentiate it if you're just looking on somebody's arm to
It's a
where it's going to
flex.
strike. It's going
Yeah,
to strike up a conversation.
it's
They're going to
gonna
be
be a
like,
flex.
hey, that's that new
Is
watch.
that the new Ultra?
And oh, as a matter of fact, it is, and it's got this
Because
siren
I'll be
on
walking
it.
around with my wrist like this all the
Right,
time.
right. Like, yeah,
I'll be like,
yeah, you want to, yeah, right. So this
all day.
it's affordable enough to where people will buy this just for the flex, because it does look different. It's something brand new from Apple, versus, like I mentioned, the past couple of watches look the same. So it's like, all right, well, why should I get the new one when the last year looks the same? Well, this looks different enough to realize, all right, this looks different, and I definitely want it. So, only other thing that Apple announced was the AirPods Pro Generation 2. And the difference with this one is it's got all the new stuff. It's got personalized spatial audio to where you put them in your ear and it measures your ear using speakers and microphones to where it gives you a personalized audio experience. It has 2 times more active noise cancellation. So when you turn on the noise cancellation, less sound gets through. But if you turn on the transparency mode, it has a special trick to where if you're walking and you have the transparency mode on, and for those who don't know, transparency mode will let sound in to where it's almost like amplifying the sound around you. But if you're out somewhere and there's a loud thing happening, like I think in the video for the Apple event, they showed a video of a lady walking in the alley and there was a construction dude with a jackhammer. The transparency mode will automatically filter out those abrupt, loud sounds. but still lets stuff in. So it's almost like it's doing a little bit of both. It's active noise cancellation for super loud sounds, but the regular sounds like somebody talking, maybe, anything else, it'll let that stuff through. Another thing with the case has a microphone on it to where now if you lose your AirPods or you lose the AirPods Pro case, you can actually use Find My,
I
and
thought that was a good feature.
it will actually emit a sound from the case, because right now, if you lose these, the sound only comes from these. The sound doesn't come from the case. So if you lose the headphones and the case with the AirPods Generation 2, it'll emit a sound from the case that where you can actually locate it. And in addition to that, same thing with the AirTags. With AirTags, if you put that on your luggage and you get close, it'll have that same little navigation thing to where it'll kind of point to where it is. Well, the Apple AirPods Pro
thing.
The AirPods Pro case does the same thing. Cool thing about this is it's same price as the AirPod Generation 1. So what I keep mentioning about the price is because Apple in none of these devices raised the price, when everybody and their mama is raising the cost of everything because of inflation, chip shortages, supply chain shortages, inflation, yada, 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 all these reasons, recession, whatever you want to call it, all these reasons why all these companies are raising the price of everything. Apple was like, you know what? We ain't going to do our people like that. We're going to keep it the same price. And in one case with the Apple Watch SE, which is something new that came out this year, they reduced the price of about $30. So yeah, I just wanted to put that extra shot out that Apple actually kept everything the same price, if not made it a little bit cheaper.
I think Apple and Samsung, they learned that lesson back in 2020 when they jacked the price up of the Pro Max, where it was well over $1,000, like $1,300 or something like that. And I know that the Samsung on their Ultra, on their Galaxy S20 Ultra, I want to say it was like $1,400 or something like that, and nobody bought them. Basically,
Right.
I just hang on to this another year, and then maybe I can afford to get that. And Apple said, nah, that didn't work out quite right. Let's go back to these reasonably priced high-end phones and keep it pushing. So I was glad to see that these things didn't get jacked way up, because I knew I was going to get one.
Yep, they kept them the same price. The only other thing Apple announced, iOS 16 launched today, so it's got all the new features. Get the customized lock screen, got the send and unsend text messages.
That's a good
all
feature.
those. Yeah.
Let me ask you though, why do I care about always on? Because I can't figure out why I care about that. Why I would want to care about that as a feature, or why do I want my phone always on? That's the other thing. Like, I know they figured out a way to sort of, maximize battery life versus display, whatever. But like, why do I want always on?
Maybe some people that use their phone, they put it as a dock, or you can't see what I'm doing here. Is they've got a desk cradle or something. They use that as their regular clock. Maybe they put it on their nightstand, and they don't want to have to reach over. Like what I have to do is at night, I have to reach over and kind of bang my table, and that sends a vibration to turn my screen on. Outside of that, just keeping up with what everybody else is doing. Android, some other devices have always on displays. Apple has really, with this phone, they said, okay, well, we can give you the same battery life with an extra feature. Now, whether or not you use this always on feature or not, that's on you. But if you use it, you don't have to say, okay, well, how's this going to impact my battery? Because Apple's saying it ain't.
This is one of the things that everybody's saying, oh, Samsung had this for years. Now Apple's copying. Well, here's why they're copying. So on my phone right here, that I'm showing to you guys, you can see it. I have always on. I actually have a Samsung fast charger that I just set my phone on, and it becomes a clock. It becomes my notifications. They're just there. They're just turned on. So I in my house, I leave that thing turned on. There's probably enough people who have seen that on Samsung devices or other Android devices and said that is cool, to where Apple, like Terrence just said, if we can do it and not cost battery, why not? If people like it, it's another thing to keep them using our platform.
And and it's not always on in the full brightness. It kind of dims
Oh
everything
yeah,
to where you
it's
can.
way dim. But
Yeah.
like I said, it's just always on. I always look at it, and I can always, I can't see when I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see nothing. But it like night, if I have it sitting on the nightstand, if I could see it, it would tell me what time it was without having to, look over, across the other side of the room to see the alarm clock. So
I get it. I mean, I guess, because
It's more.
because I don't have any notifications enabled, so I don't care. I'll get to them when I get to them. And the 2 times a day I need to check time, I'll just pick my phone up. I was just like, why, what is the allure of always on?
Is definitely more visible on the watch, because
Yeah.
before always on display for the watch, you had to tap your wrist or turn the
I
crown.
would want it for my watch because I do find
Yeah.
myself, because I mean I have raised awake, but that don't always work. It don't always
You
know that
gotta.
my wrist and I end up doing that a lot, trying to twisting my wrist trying to get the watch to come on, and then I end up
Yeah.
just, well, let me just tap the screen. I would
Uh,
use that. That is a reason I would use an always on functionality on a watch as opposed to a phone. Definitely.
yeah. So yeah, that's it. Like I said, a couple other features with iOS 16. You can messages if you use the send and unsend, the edit messages, that feature, and with mail, if you use the default mail app for iPhone, you can schedule messages. Like if you type out a message at 12 in the morning, you don't want it to hit their inbox till 8 a.m. You can type that message up and do the scheduled delivery, and you can do snooze. I call it snooze, to where if you get a email and you really don't want to deal with it right now, but you do want a reminder, hey, I need to deal with this, you can do a scheduled delivery to where you can set it, okay, well, notify me again in an hour or 2 hours later tonight, or whatever the case may be. But a lot of features that I wanted specifically in iOS 16 were delayed, like the live activities. I call them the live tiles for those Windows Phone folks, to where that feature was delayed. Shared libraries, shared iCloud libraries, to where me and my family, if we all take pictures on a trip, we don't have to share or text message each other the
AirDrop.
images. We can select to upload them to the shared library that we all have access to, and then it was a couple other features, but iPad OS 16 has also been delayed. So that didn't drop today. You got to wait till later on, if not next month, to get iPad OS 16 that has the stage manager, so the better multitasking for iPad OS. But like I said, if you have an iPhone and you want the new brand spanking new iOS 16 with all those new features, the customizable lock screen, I think, is what most people are going to play around with. That is available today.
Nice.
So I think the last thing that we should say about the iPhone is that it's now number one in the United States.
That's crazy.
It has actually got in front of Android. A lot of people don't know that because everywhere you look, you see people with iPhones. But it wasn't until the quarter ending in June that they actually have taken the number one spot in the United States, to where they now have over 50% market share in the U.S.
And that's crazy because Android is just an operating system. Any manufacturer can build a phone with it, and most of them have, from HTC to Google has their own. Samsung is the most popular one, but Facebook at one time tried it. If you go overseas, you got all these Zomni,
Huawei.
Huawei. Anybody can use Android and make a phone. Anybody with the technical
There's literally
savvy.
hundreds of
Right.
different manufacturers to make Android.
Exactly.
Hundreds of them.
So the fact that Apple actually, in the U.S., of course, Apple passed them in market share. That's a pretty big feat.
It is, and it should speak to, design and quality and all. I mean, no shade against I mean, Samsung makes some awesome phones, but I mean, there's just something about an iPhone. I don't know.
Samsung makes awesome phones. The Pixel, the 6 and the 6A
The
are
Pixel,
pretty
yeah.
good. They're pretty good. But really, everybody else, they are playing second fiddle. Like there's really no other phone. Like you can put the highest end Samsung up against the highest end Apple device, and it's usually, well, which one came out most recently.
Right.
So the iPhone 14 is out now. it just jumped ahead of the Galaxy S22. The S23 comes out next year. It'll probably have a couple features that'll jump it back. But those are really the only ones that are doing that. Everybody else is truly playing second fiddle to to Apple. And I am a diehard. Yeah, I'm a diehard Android fan.
Yeah, there's a couple of them out there. Oppo, OnePlus, like we already mentioned, Google, Samsung. There's a bunch of other ones, but like I said, you have to be that new phone, the Nothing phone. That has the back with the light up.
No, you have to be in the know.
You got to be a fan.
Yeah, you have to be a fan. So what do people? Everybody knows iPhone. Everybody knows Samsung. Most people have heard of Motorola, but beyond those three companies, who else makes phones in the United States? Most people aren't. They just don't have any awareness of it because, once you get past Samsung, at least here in the States, it gets so diluted with just everybody has, something now. Or I didn't even know that I didn't even know they made phones.
And then you think about what the carriers offer as well.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't seen no OnePlus at the AT&T store lately. You know what I'm saying? So I think that has a lot to do with it as well, because most people are either with AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, like, what's available with your carrier also has a lot to do with, your options.
And here's another thing, there are like Terrences and the Stephanies of the world. Y'all are going to go get your new iPhone as soon as that joint comes out. There's no question about that. But there's a lot of folks that, I can go get me the iPhone 11 now, and they'll be completely happy with it, because what do you get on iPhone 11? As of today, you can download the latest operating system on it. So
today,
you may have functionality that your phone just doesn't have, because there are pieces and parts in your phone that that come in an iPhone 14 and don't come in your phone. But as far as the operating system is concerned, you're using today what the person who's going to get an iPhone 14 is using. Well, not today, when they're using on the 26th. Right. That is not the case. It's not even close to the case. With Android. I have the flagship Android phone. I won't get the new version of Android. It's it'll probably be 4 months, 6 months after it comes out before I actually get it. And that's on the high end phone. You start talking about some of these mid range phones, it could take a year or more before you actually start seeing the operating systems get updated. So that's where the problem has always been for Android users. It's just been one of those things to where there's a large segment of the populace that's going to go into and say, I want the cheapest smartphone you got, and that's always running Android. And it's like, now it's not necessarily so. You can get some pretty inexpensive iPhones in stores. You're just not getting the 14. You might be getting an 11. You might be getting a 10R or something like that. Once again, it's that is 4 years back, but it runs today's operating system, and as long as it smells and looks brand new to you, it smells and looks brand new to you. You can't say that with Android. So Terrence, I'm glad you walked us through all that. We called it. We didn't need to have any additional stories. This is actually even a long show for us. But I think, is there anything else that we want to talk about as far as Apple devices are concerned, or do we hit everything?
I think we hit everything. There's an announcement coming in October when Apple is suspected to launch the new Macs. So maybe a ramped up MacBook Pro with the M1, M2 Ultra, whatever the new hottest Apple silicon. They're going to launch, alleged to launch new MacBook Pros, maybe a new Mac Mini, maybe the VR, AR headset or glasses. Nobody knows if Apple's going to announce like some augmented reality frames with a prescription, or they're going to do the full on augmented reality new, headset. So those are rumored to come out. We don't know if those are going to come out this year or next year. If they do come out this year, it'll be during that October event next month when maybe the iPad OS will actually be released. iPad OS 16, rather.
All right, so we'll definitely hit those items when they do get announced or when they get released.
I ain't got the wallet for those, Jack. I just spent all my money a couple days ago.
You're saying that now, but let a new joint come out. You'll find a way. You'll be selling something.
If Apple comes out with like the augmented reality glass, kind of like Google Glass, but like you can actually get a prescription and they look like regular glasses, but they overlay information. Like if I'm looking for directions, if I want to read a message, whatever the case may be, those may attract me. If Apple comes out with an augmented reality headset thing, I'm a pass because I
don't even use my Oculus like that, so I definitely wouldn't.
Yet.
I definitely wouldn't get a headset at all.
All right, y'all. That was a good wrap up of good rundown of everything that Apple had out. But we are at the end of the show. So one of the things that we always do at the end of the show, that we usually do at the end of the show, is we talk about our patrons. So we have a couple new patrons. So I want to give a shout out to Roz Hanlon and Amber Elstad. I also want to shout out Charles Hall, who is listening to us right now in our live stream, because I was just messing around with some stuff on Patreon and some stuff in our Discord. It actually created a new tier. Saray hit me up about the new tier, or about what I was doing with tiers, probably 15-20 minutes after I did it. And then Charles is already, I wasn't even expecting that this was going to happen. I didn't realize I made it live yet. He didn't already signed up for the new tier. So he's actually giving us a raise to our new tier in Patreon. So I definitely wanted to give a shout out to Charles Hall, to Roz Hanlon, and to Amber Elstad. Thank you for supporting the Tech Jawn.
Appreciate you.
So with that, Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and tell the folks how they can get at you?
You can follow me all around the web at Tech Life Steph.
And you can find me on the internet as well as Brother Tech. It's BROTHATECH.
And I am on all things at Rob Dunwood. And also we are on all things at the Tech Jawn, the Tech JAWN. So until we meet again in a week's time, peace. Good show, y'all.
Yep.
Good show.
I just want my 14 Pro. Oh, that's all. Just the girl and her phone.
So Charles, as soon as we get done doing the live stream, I'll hit you up. We can chat back and forth in Discord, and I'll tell you what happens. It's not an issue. It's just some things that if Patreon would just do things in a more user-friendly way, they would make things easier on everybody. So we'll talk in a second. But y'all, I wanted to throw this out there. We talked a little bit about it before the show, but have you paid attention to any of the dust up about folks not liking black folks actually being in these fantasy shows? What is it? One of them is the Rings of Power. That's the
Lord of the
Rings prequel, and then the other one is
House of Dragons.
House of Dragons, which is Game of Thrones prequel.
Right.
Both of the, let's start with Game of Thrones because that was the first one. Game of Thrones has a bruh in there. I can't think of what is. I think
a
it's
whole family.
Corliss.
Yeah. But Corliss is the main guy.
I'm just gonna call them Whitey dreads because that's what they remind me of. They got white dreadlocks. The whole family.
Very prominent.
It's like
he's got some position. He's got some influence. He actually
significant position. He might be the second most powerful person in the show. So it's like one of those things to where some folks ain't trying to have that, and it's just like.
And the whole argument is their whole argument is not that. Well, some people are. There was no black people in Middle Earth. I think, but most the people who really try this argument.
There weren't any black people in a fictional.
Well, yeah, that's just stupid. But what people are trying to argue is the vision of these characters wasn't the people who created the people who wrote the books, the ideas, the positions that these characters have that doesn't align with a minority. He's powerful. He has influence. you know.
And that's all it is. If he was
Yeah.
the dude that cleaned
The
the
hand servant.
dragons'
Yeah.
cages, when
Right.
nobody had no problem with a black person in the show. So just knock it
Right.
off. Knock it off.
Right. So they're trying to argue that the vision, all those other things don't line up to being a black person or a black character or a minority character, brown, whatever the case may be. So the fact that these people in the House of Dragons and the Lord of the Rings, because there's a couple prominent characters there as well, you know, they're a minority. They carry the story. They are included in the story, and I think people have a problem with that because, again, which is what their privilege fails to see, is they have been centered so much in every other story that people who look like us, we've had to watch these shows, these movies, these fictional characters, and imagine us in these situations. And we just had to deal with it, right? Mm-hmm. When the tables have turned, they, because of their privilege, can't see themselves as this minority character and say, how can I apply my thinking, my logic to that person?
Listen.
Because black means I don't relate 100%.
It's not even relating. White supremacy can only exist if white people are supreme. And if they
Right.
see themselves as supreme in any and all areas, including media and fantasy and books and television and everything else. If they don't get to see themselves as supreme, white supremacy cannot exist. So that's pretty much the gist. You know what I mean? And you may not even know you're a white supremacist or you have those tendencies, but in this country, that's the way the structure of this country has been built from the foundation up. So in order for that system to be maintained and perpetuated, you have to continue to see those people in those positions. And when you don't, then everybody has a problem because now the structure is crumbling. The foundation is crumbling, and the people who have a vested interest in it not crumbling have a problem with that.
Right.
Yeah, and the Rings of Power. This one is even crazier because we're not even talking about people anymore.
Talking about creatures.
We're talking about creatures. You know, for lack of better word. So they're, you know, one of the main characters, and you know, is an elf, and he's Puerto Rican. People got a problem with that. There are some hobbits. Where the main Hobbit character is not probably, according to, if you look at who her father and her mother are, father's white, mother's black, so she's mixed. But you know, got a problem with that, and it's just like, for real, it's like, you know. But I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked by any of this. I'm not, you know, nothing of this amazes me. Nothing made me say, oh wow, I can't believe that happened. I'm just tickled by, when I said this earlier in our pre-show, the number of people that will go and ruin their social media profiles and social media standards because they go out there and they say something that they probably wouldn't normally say, but they in their feels, so they say something, and then the internet comes for them, and then those accounts get shut down. And it's just like, you really are having a problem with a Puerto Rican man playing an elf, a fictional character, and things that don't exist on a place that doesn't exist. This isn't even Earth. This isn't even Earth. If you look at the map of of Middle Earth, if you look at the map of the world that this stuff is from, it's not even our planet, and they have issues with it. So I thought it was funny, and I thought it would make a good topic for for our after party.
Yep. Par for the course. This is what you expect. Those who do.
I want to answer Charles. Oh, you know why that's the case.
Right.
You know why that's. We don't even got it. There's no question as to why that's the case. And then the other question is, why is his hair long and straight and blue eyes too? But you know.
Yeah.
But you know.
I have a problem with us who keep getting mad that these things exist. It's like half of the reason why, maybe not half, a portion of the reason why is people just want attention. And when these characters come out, same thing with the Little Mermaid, I think people want to stir things up and get a reaction. If these characters just came out and all these folks got upset, but it really didn't make any sort of reverberance. What is it? Reverberance. It didn't ripple the waves. It would be less conversations, but they know I can get on Twitter and drum up some craziness, and my mentions are going to go on fire, and then people relish in that. So I half of the, not half, a portion of it is like, we need to stop giving this attention, and maybe it'll fall on deaf ears, whatever the case may be, but we are definitely not helping by shouting back on social media. One, it's like, you don't know these people. It's ineffective for you to be trying to dunk on people on the internet, because it's the internet. It's
And it's done. Number one,
right,
it's done. The show
right,
is shot.
Yeah,
They're
right,
not going to go back and
they
reshoot
already
the
on
show
season
with
2.
all white people.
right.
Like, why are you're complaining for nothing, because it's not going to change anything. And
Mm-hmm.
then we, to your point, Taryn, now we rah-rah. We can be black and Middle Earth. Who cares? The show shot. The production has wrapped. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, you don't have to watch it if
So
you don't
I
like
will
black people in Middle Earth, but just SD about the stuff.
I will give
My
you guys a
goodness.
perspective. I'm going to give you my perspective on the House of Dragons. I never watched
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Never watched it. I didn't start it when it started, and people say you got to go to the beginning and watch. I just never did, and because of that, I had really no intention on looking at
House of Dragons.
House of Dragons. It wasn't until it's got black folks. Oh, not just black people in it. It's like black folks are like major characters that have power and this and the other. That's actually what made me go and watch the show. Now, unfortunately for me, I'm not a fan. I don't know if I'm gonna stick with it. I'm not going to get HBO Max just so I can watch House of Dragons. So I'll watch it if there's other ways to watch it, but that's not going to be the way. But that's actually what made me go and at least take a look at it. It's like, because, there's people who look like me in it. Let me go, let me go see. Because like you said, Terrence, what we generally have to do is we have to, kind of imagine ourselves, in these things. I remember when my grandfather told me when I was a kid that Darth Vader was black, I made Darth Vader the good guy. That's what I did back in the day when James Earl, when I found out, I didn't know who James Earl Jones was, but when I found out that James Earl Jones was a black man, then it was cool to be James Earl Jones. And in my mind, Boba Fett was black. He never took that helmet off in the original, in the original stuff. So I just assumed he was that in my head. But that's what we had to do as little kids. We had to imagine ourselves in things that we would never see ourselves in. So from that standpoint, I do like that they are doing these things now. But Stephanie, you're right. This stuff has been in post-production for months and months and months and months and months and months. There's nothing they could do to change it. They're not going to go back and reshoot it because people has heard, got their feelings hurt about it.
And our voices are being heard, which is why you see black characters in House of Dragon and Lord of the Rings, because when they came out with Black Panther, it made so much stupid money that they were like, hey, you mean to tell me if we put some more of these characters, this diverse cast, we'll get that many more watchers and more viewers? So our voice is already being heard. Ain't no sense of getting our blood boiling because somebody watches and says, oh, I don't like them Negroes in the show. It's like we're making the change. It's like, don't stress yourself out because, because some people on the internet, got something to say. We're doing the right thing. It's like, just keep going. If we can't create our own, make sure we support these shows that are showing a diverse cast so they can keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, because money is green, right?
I can say it like this. I want to know, Steph, what are you wearing to go see The Woman King this weekend? Because my lion sash, just like King Joffrey wore in the original Coming to America, should be in the mail by Wednesday.
I ain't dressing up, but I'm gonna be at the movies. This is what I'm gonna force because I haven't still since pandemic have not been able to force myself to go into a theater to watch a film, and I really wanted to see Nope, and still didn't go do it. Just some subconscious thing is keeping me from being in that theater. But I am absolutely, even if I just go buy a ticket and don't go in, because I still feel like the panorama is among us. I'm gonna support that film no matter what. But I think I'm definitely gonna, look at whatever that first matinee show is, and try to see if I can get in there without a whole bunch of other people all crowded up in there. But absolutely, I'm not dressing up though. I have a Black Panther t-shirt, so I might wear that.
I'm
but
being facetious. I'm being facetious about the dressing up.
but I ain't dressing up.
But I'm with you. I said nope to nope. I wasn't ready yet, but my wife and I are going to go see it. Now it'll be the same thing. I think it comes out Thursday. If we go see it, it'll be like Friday at like 10:45 or something like that. Unless that's crowded.
Do y'all have drive-ins? Do they have drive-ins up there anywhere?
We do, but they're not.
But they
close.
don't get the good movies quick.
And they don't get. Yeah, they're not. They don't do first run films.
Oh, that's sad. We have one in the whole state of Georgia that is about 40 minutes away from us, and we pack up the kids like when Jurassic Park came out this summer. Packed up the kids. Ordered some pizza, drove down to the drive-in, parked our car, popped the lid open in the back of our SUV, let the kids climb in and turn the radio on. And that was a nice experience because of one, it's outside. So you're don't have the same environment. And two, it's like a little event. So it's a shame. That would be, if I had some money.
Would have thought that drive-in
skyrocketed
a resurgence. In the pandemic, but they didn't. Surprisingly enough,
if I had some money, like some real for real money, like a million or two to invest in something, I would try to bring back drive-ins, especially with electric cars out. You can have the
have a charger there.
Yeah, charger there. You can have
the drive-in. We used to go to the drive-in a lot when I was younger. But yeah, no, it is interesting that they didn't make a comeback in pandemic. Because I would have went. I would have went the whole time if I could stay in my car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
people,
Ray,
black. Go ahead.
I was just going to say. I was going to change subject. So finish your point. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to say. Black people. We do black people stuff. So the one I go to, people have the full spread. They have the table out with the grill and the whole nine.
It would be a drive-in if there wasn't somebody grilling and selling fish sandwiches and hot dogs and stuff.
Oh yeah, we bring our chairs out, and just it's a whole thing. So like I said, if I had some money, I would make a push to get some drive-ins back.
Mm-hmm.
So Ray asked, she said, Rob, how do I feel about Lando and later Mace Windu? So let's start with Lando. I remember when I was a kid that a whole bunch of bros went from the Jerry curl to the perm because Lando was cool when Empire Strikes Back came out. Mace Windu, it was Samuel Jackson, so the role could not be cool. But I was glad that they started showing that, there are black people who are Jedis as well. And I remember there was, folks, they had a problem with Mace Windu, even though it was Sam Jackson, they had a problem with a black Jedi.
Yeah,
they had problems with it. And I just remember, and this is probably years after the movie came out, but I think that George Lucas, who really didn't have a whole lot to do with those movies, other than his running through his company and stuff like that, he just said, "Have you ever met my wife?" And that was just like an epic drop, mic drop for me. And it's like, because you have all these people who are saying, well, the original writer, he didn't intend for this and intend for that. And he just said, have you ever met my wife? Because, for those who don't know, he is married to a black woman named Melody Hobson. I think they got married in 2006, I think. And they've been together since like the late 90s or something.
It is a shame it took so long, though, to get from a Lando to a Mace, because they really are. I mean, well, if you go into
the new ones,
the new ones, we had old boy John Boyega's character was sort of a more major character and everything, but between Lando and Mace was a lot of distance in a lot of movies and not a lot of major black characters. And I love Star Wars dearly, but there was a dearth of characters of color in that series, episodes 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't have no problem with attaching a minority label to your boy Jar Jar, right?
Well, again, because he was the clown of the group, and Lando,
they were like cool with that.
And because Lando was initially a little scoundrel, you know what I mean? He turned
Turned
Han
in your
and
yeah.
double crossed him and all the rest of that stuff. So they don't mind when we ain't being portrayed in the best light that we can. But then you put a lightsaber in our hand and call us a Jedi. Now everybody got a problem. So y'all can miss me with all of that.
All right, y'all. We went a little longer than we normally go on our after party, but we didn't have one last week, so we had to make up for it a little bit. So, Saray, Charles, thank you for hanging out with us. Charles, remember, I'm going to text you as soon as we get done with the show here. Try to figure out what's going on with your Patreon account.
We got to shout out Mark too. Mark was with us.
Mark is with us. Oh, I'm sorry. I really do need to look back and see names. I'm only looking at the ones at the bottom of the list.
He made sure to chime in. I think this was him. We were talking about the androids. I think he mentioned, we had to big up his OnePlus. So people tune in for the things that are important to them.
All right, y'all. So we'll meet again in a week's time. Till then, peace.
Take it easy.